And we welcome you into the debut edition, the 2023 debut edition. We're back and better than ever. It is the best podcast available. I'm your host, Jason Gibbs. Coming up on the program today, Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook joins us to recap free agency, look ahead to the draft. We'll talk a little bit about his baseball idol as well on today's program and a whole lot more, plus his love of pizza and grits and eggs. But more right now as we get into things. It is the Browns offseason. It's taken a little while to get going, but the Browns with a flurry of moves in free agency. And, of course, that leads right into April. The players are back in the building in about 2 weeks from right now. They'll start their offseason program. The draft will happen then April 27th through the 29th. And then from there, we go into rookie minicamp, May 12th through the 14th. OTAs then begin May 24th, May 31st, another week of OTAs, and then a shortened offseason program that will wrap up with mandatory veteran minicamp June 6th through the 8th. That gives the guys and everybody in this building a few extra weeks to catch their breath because we're going to be back a little bit earlier thanks to the Hall of Fame game and Joe Thomas overachieving in his career. We'll be back early, so we end up with a shorter off-season program, and we will keep you covered throughout all of it every Thursday on the best podcast available. Right now, we talk draft, we talk free agency, and a whole lot more with Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook. Have a watch and have a listen. Here on the best podcast available, the debut in 2023, here with the Assistant General Manager of your Cleveland Browns, Glenn Cook. Mr. Cook, congratulations on being the first up here on the new edition of the best podcast available. No pressure.
No pressure.
We're not, it's good. We're good. Life's good. Everything's great. We're a couple weeks away from the draft. We're through the bulk of free agency. But before we even get started, I noticed that you were wearing the other day a certain sweatshirt.
Yeah.
I believe a UConn sweatshirt.
Yeah, had to pay up. A friendly bet. Yeah, my alma mater didn't come through for me, but it's okay. You know, we made it to the Final Four. So
you did with my former basketball coach, Coach Larry Nagel, was at Bowling Green.
He's legit
for me.
He's legit.
So he's done a nice job at the U. I will give him his credit.
They did win it, so I'll give.
You lost to the champ.
Lost to the champs. That's not a consolation, but lost to the champs.
That's all right. They made a nice little Final Four run.
Yeah.
Another hard-hitting journalistic question here on the best podcast available, with Easter quickly approaching. Ham, turkey, or other for the dinner? What will be on your dinner table this the coming weekend?
Probably won't do a dinner, but I would say probably other.
Other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not too far from what you mentioned, but other. Yeah.
All right. Care to elaborate?
No, just chicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Not that complicated. It's
no.
Not that fun of an answer.
That my wife, so we will be out of town for the weekend because my wife does not want to host and she hates ham. So she would like to go somewhere where any option is on the table except for ham.
So where are we going?
We'll be in Florida. Probably a little seafood.
Well, yeah.
With the in-laws for the weekend.
Just lay it on thick for us Cleveland folks. Going down to Florida.
Just for a few days. Yeah. I mean, it's, the weather's not awful right now.
No, it'll be.
When the weather's warm, it storms here.
It'll be in the 70s tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, today we'll get storms. Tomorrow we'll get 70-degree weather. That is Cleveland.
Exactly. Talking with Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook, and let's get right into it, Glenn. From a free agency standpoint, you take a look. You guys have been very active over the past month and a half, and it may have taken a few more days than maybe. I know the fan base was clamoring for some things right away, but given the current contract situations and whatnot with this football team, things we're going to have to develop, especially on the market side. When you go to put together free agency, is there a big board similar to what you see with the draft in your big board that you put together?
Short answer, yes. I mean, the first thing we do is kind of try to step back, look at our own team, right? So closer to the end of the season, early January, you kind of want to zoom out, be as objective and honest with yourself as possible and say, hey, where do we need to get better? Where do we need to make some improvements if we're trying to make the playoffs and compete for championships? So we kind of started there, really assessed, who we are, who we were, and where we want to go. And then, you start to build it out. Then you look at the marketplace. You look at who's available. Everyone knows who's a free agent, who's an RFA, who potentially could be available for a trade, which we'll probably talk about. And then you try to map out, okay, where's that nice blend of we need this, we want this, and this is available, right? And so that's kind of how we just approached it. That's a real probably simplistic way of describing it. And we do that over the course of, really 2 to 3 months as a group, and, just run through a bunch of different exercises and really challenge ourselves to make sure we know who's out there and what's going to be the best avenue to add them to our team. And then, you end up, writing a bunch of checks.
Yeah.
Obviously.
We don't have to do that. Someone else does that.
Yeah.
But you guys set it all up and where the dominoes fall.
I love the process because the thing about free agency is you plan all the way to Z and you just don't know, there's different factors, different drivers for these men as they make these decisions. And we try to stay as agile as possible. I think Andrew's talked about that, just being adaptable and trying to be as agile as possible in these situations and go get dudes we want in Cleveland. All
right, so you guys start working with your scouts and your analytics people, and just it's a very collaborative process. But then you meet with the coach.
Yeah. And
you've got 2 new coordinators
that
you're also throwing into the mix on that, in a new defensive coordinator and a new special teams coordinator. What is the process of that? Are you bringing in position coaches as well in that situation? Or?
So with Kevin, with the offensive side, it was easy, right? Like Kevin's here. That's an ongoing conversation, right? You're always talking about your team week to week, partly trying to make sure you have what you need in season to perform and play as well as you can on each side of the ball. But then as you're evaluating, you're just constantly checking the pulse of both coaches, both coordinators, to get a sense of like, hey, I really need this. This will really put us in a good spot as a unit. And bringing in Jim a little bit later probably makes that a little bit tougher. But he's pretty clear and definitive of what he wants, so it expedited the process for us. But it's like you said, it's collaborative. We're always working together in conversation. On every move. Even still, as we're working through some of the guys who are potentially still available on the street, as we call it, we're constantly like, hey Jim, can you take a peek? Or Kev, what do you think about this guy? How do you think he fits? Whether it's adding depth or there's some guys that are still out there for a various amount of reasons. So it's great. The communication is important. Because it's not only talent, but you do want to make sure the fit is good. I think that's really important. So you have to talk to the coaches to make sure, like, hey, this guy's going to fit, right? You want to make sure this works.
Along those lines of making it a fit, and we'll get into the draft process and the interviews, but something that I've heard you mention over the last few months is that second and third hand info and like information about the player as a person. How much of an impact is that in terms of your free agency? Because you have guys, there's a certain window that you can start talking to players and talking to their agents, and it's got to be a quick turnaround in some instances. So is it the same amount of research going into finding out about their background and who they are as much as it is what they've done on the field?
No, look, like we say, information is king. Like it's important. It's like a strong amount of currency in our business. So, first the foundation is set really by the college process. We change and evolve as people and humans, but kind of you are who you are at your core. So we do lean on like, hey, 3-4 years ago, this is what we knew about this person, and you just kind of build off that. So it's a fine line because you reach out to your connects, but they're also sometimes trying to keep guys in their building. So you you try to absorb and acquire as much information about, how they've grown or maintained or maybe still been stagnant in their growth as NFL players, and just you lump it into the pie, right? It's a big soup that you're just trying to figure out, like, hey, how's this guy going to fit into our organization? Because he may have fit in the place he was at, or he may not have fit well into that place. But for us, we actually think it's a better fit or a worse fit. So it's definitely important to make sure. And one of the things we talk about is, once they get out of college, you don't want to change and ask guys not to do what they've done well. Like Dalvin Tomlinson has been really good at doing what he does. Like we're not going to ask him, to turn into a different player. We want him to come here and be great in the manner that he's been great. So it's really important to make sure we lock in on that on and off the field, because that's a big piece, and we found success in that formula.
And let's go into some of these guys that we've gone out and acquired here over the past month. It's been a flurry of guys. As I mentioned, the first few days were quiet, but I think that was that way for a lot of teams around the National Football League this year, just kind of wanting to see where the market was going to be set at. And then you had the opportunity to go in, and of course you guys had a plan. You were prepared, and you took care of business relatively quickly. It starts with Dalvin Tomlinson at defensive tackle. On the edge, it's Ogbo. Did I have that right? Ogbo? Yeah, sure.
Ogbo. We call him
Dom's saying yes.
Just call him O.
I literally every day we have the conversation on Browns Daily. So how do we say it again? How do we say it? Just call him O.
Just call him O.
I like that. So, and then on the defensive side as well, a couple other guys, rotational type players on the defensive line, but you also go out and get a safety in Juan Thornhill. So 3 big pieces that you've gone out and acquired. Can you talk a little bit about them and what you guys liked about them?
Yeah, I'll start up front because for us that was, as you can see, a point of emphasis. Not only because of where we are or were as a team, but just because of how important we think it is to be really good up front. Like I said, to compete, in the National Football League. So Dalvin was big, literally and figuratively. He's a big man. He controls the interior part of the line of scrimmage, and we wanted to really, make sure we solidified the front and supported Miles and some of our younger guys who are still growing and developing. So Dalvin fit that. I think, as you'll probably get to know, he's just as good off the field as a leader, setting an example, as he is on the field making plays. So to kind of have him as the cornerstone of the free agent process this year, I would say is probably a pretty good sign. We want you want guys like him. So he really was a good get and really important for us to get. And then probably a little underrated. We're excited about him. We'll see. We're excited about what he can do. He probably had one of the best years, if not the best years of his career. So we're going to continue to put him in a spot to do what he does well. Like, the dude gets after the quarterback. He's relentless.
Second half of the season, he was one of the top edge rushers in the National Football League.
Absolutely. And so, that's the next piece, right? Like, when you can affect these really, really good quarterbacks in the division we play in and the conference we play in, period, the league, gives you a better chance. And so, hopefully him, Miles, Dalvin, and the crew can get after these dudes we're about to face next year. So being able to get him and hopefully, catch him on the uptick was really good for us. And then, Juan, sometimes as you just want good football players. The guy's won 2 Super Bowls. He's anchored the back end of a pretty good secondary in Kansas City. He fits the skill set we want. The dude has range. He makes plays on the ball. He can run. He brings energy. You'll see, maybe you've seen a little bit. He has a lot of personality. He brings juice in that way. So, again, you want to be as deep, versatile, and as talented as you can with the way offense is played in this league. So, being able to bring him in, like you said, it wasn't the first wave, and it kind of just ended up being a fit, right? Like, he wanted to be here. We wanted him here. We figured it out, So, it looks like we were intentional about fixing the defense in some ways, but honestly, we were just trying to acquire really good guys. Like, you don't want to overthink it and and be too myopic in the sense of, we need this position, we need this player.
Sure.
Sometimes you just want to be as talented as you can as well. So that's how it played out.
Yeah, I mean, those are 3 really big acquisitions, and I know that there were a few other guys as well, especially that can help the special teams room at the linebacker positions and whatnot. On the offensive side of the football, the big piece is going out and acquiring a wide receiver in Elijah Moore. And Andrew alluded to it that, we had an interest last year when the Jets had him on the market. Yeah. So when a guy like that becomes available yet again, what is that process like in terms of going and getting a player of that magnitude?
See, you wish you could kind of maybe one day, like, you wish there could be more insight into some of these things. I mean, like Andrew stated, it's funny how it works out because, we kind of inquired a little bit last year on just their interest in potentially working on a trade. It didn't, come to fruition. And then you look up, months later and he's on our team. So it's just crazy how that works out sometimes. But yeah, part of our thing is just staying prepared. I think our research and analytics group, along with our pro staff, really do a good job of making sure we are aware of just potential opportunities. I have this quote, opportunity comes to the prepared mind. So we're always trying to just stay prepared. You never know, right? Like, you never know who can be available, who's not. We didn't know the Jets and Packers situation.
Yeah, it was going on at the same time.
Would be what it was. So part of it is we were prepared to jump on an opportunity like that. We liked him coming out. He's been productive in the league. He fits what we're looking for in terms of guys on that in that position group. So I think it's one of those situations where it wasn't a scramble for us. It was like, hey, okay, this is how we view it. This is how we value the move. This is the impact it would make on our team. And then, in some of the other ancillary considerations like cap and financially. But, like, we were pretty prepared to jump. And sometimes you do have to be because other teams were interested and other teams are making offers, sometimes being first is best, sometimes being last. So, it's fun. Like, those type of transactions are pretty cool to be a part of.
I know you've got a lot more meetings to get to here, and
I'm good.
We'll let you go here in just a minute or two. But from a draft standpoint, no first round pick, no second round pick as of now. This is April, and a lot can happen. We're 3 weeks away still from any drafting of any players, so a lot can happen, obviously. But you have 30 visits that you get with guys leading up to the draft here in your facility.
Right.
In addition to the interviews that you had at the Combine. And I know you talked about it on Browns Daily about those interviews. But how important are those 30 visits when essentially you might not be picking till the second or third round at the earliest? Third round maybe, potentially.
Well, one, I mean, we also take a long-term view with this. Like, you just never, like, with the trade thing, right? Like,
sure.
You never know when these touch points will impact your team in some way. So that in and of itself is valuable. Just being able to spend time with these young men. It's difficult during the season. You don't want to interrupt their flow, interrupt the coach's flow. So you're really getting a certain amount and certain type of information. And now you can actually get firsthand interaction and firsthand statements on certain things that they went through, really get to know them in a different way. Even with the Combine, it's a little tougher because it's shorter, right? Like, it's capped at 20 minutes. So they're in your building, in your city, around your group. It's been great. We've had some pretty dope dudes in here. I would think, like, I think I said it, at the Combine, like, the stories you hear, the adversity that these guys face,
sure,
in life, some of the successes they've had, some of the cool things they've done, like things they're doing now, especially with the advancement of NIL. Like, these young men are doing stuff I wish I would have been able to do when I was
2 sports star in college. Might have been pretty nice on the NIL
man. But so it's these visits are invaluable. They're awesome. Whether it's just getting an hour with them at dinner or seeing them take in some of the football information that we throw at them and how they regurgitate it, how they how they get excited and the passion they have around potentially like, running our plays,
Sure,
or executing our defense or whatnot. So they're really awesome. They've been going really well.
Talking with Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook here on the Best Podcast Available, the debut of the Best Podcast Available for 2023. Real quick, as you take a look at this team, it's a 53-man roster, and tough decisions have to be made at some point. Where is that balance, and how tough is it on a guy that maybe you've invested your time in, this organization's invested their time in, to make tough decisions down the stretch if indeed they're not one of the top 53, especially maybe a guy that you've done a lot of homework on and gone to bat for?
I mean, you kind of just embrace that's the job. Cut downs are probably the toughest part of the year for us, but that's just a job. I love competition. I think that kind of surfaces great things with your team and with individuals. So, I mean, I'm not going to shy away from bringing in as many really, really good players and just letting it play out. You got to let the film, let the environment, let the situation speak to you. Don't force it. So we'll let the best 53 make their way onto the team. We're not going to make the team for them.
It's all about competition.
Yeah.
I totally understand. Couple guys that you guys retained on the football side. I want to jump back. Anthony Walker Jr., Ethan Posick, Sione Takitaki, leaders. Bringing those guys back, especially Posick after the year he had on the offensive line in a year that started with Nick Harris as the starting center. Posick's got to jump in on the second play of the first preseason game. And the job he did and the job that you guys were able to do to get those guys back here. Josh Dobbs being the other one that stood out as well.
Yeah, I think all the guys you named, are culture builders. They add to the culture, not only in terms of off the field, but just the way they work, their leadership. I think using Dobbs as an example, probably losing him, you could see it, right? Like he goes to Tennessee and makes a little bit of an impact. And I think if you ask people in that building, it's probably bigger than you would have known just by watching the few games he played in. So just, constantly trying to add guys who can help steer the bus and the ship or whatever analogy you want to use to compete for championships, because that's the biggest piece. Ethan, we didn't know. You just, like I said, you want to be prepared. You never know. Like
you're building depth on your roster.
Yeah, I think, like I said, credit to the pro group. Like they saw something. And, those guys pushed us to, 2-3 weeks into free agency, like, hey, we might want to consider this guy. Like, it's pretty big surprise he's still out there. And then he goes out, plays well, and
now you get another contract.
Can't just let talent walk out your building. So you figure it out. And so we're excited to get that whole crew back. And, obviously Talk and AWOC has a little bit of adversity they got to get through. But we have a lot of faith that they can. That's why we made the commitments we did. So.
All right, final ones, a little fun.
No pressure.
No, we're done with it. We're done with the tough stuff. Grits and eggs, still the favorite meal?
Yeah. Easy.
Is there a restaurant that you go to, or do you got to make it at home? It doesn't have to be you making it, or your wife making it.
It doesn't have to be me. I usually make it. My grandmother taught me how to make grits, so I'm pretty.
I can't
pretty
do grits.
Proud of my ability
it's
to
tough.
Make grits. I'm trying to think. That's funny. I was just talking to my wife about this. Like, if you ask me last meal, it's either that or pizza and fries. Like, it's very bad, very bad. Like, and it's not even good.
One bite, everybody knows the rules.
It's not even good pizza. It's like cheese pizza. I would rock with the whole cheese pizza and French fries and be fine.
Is there a pizza place you'd go to?
Oh man, if they give me a sponsorship, I'll name them.
I like it. We'll leave it at that.
No, but I'll say Pizza 216 is probably my go-to.
All right.
And it sucks because there's a place on the east side too that we've been ordering. That's pretty good. I owe them a shout out. But yeah, I'd say Pizza 216 is my go-to.
Best song that you play on your keyboard.
Best song?
I know you're not big into music, but you taught yourself how to play keyboard.
That's a good one.
Best song.
Ribbon in the Sky.
Really?
Yeah. That was a tough one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More fun, free agency or the draft?
Ooh, for me, the draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
there's so much more unknown, and I love that. Like free agency, it's the guys kind of have made their way. There's a few times where you get some players. I don't want to name anyone specific, but like you get some players who, okay, like man, he signed as a free agent and then he blew up. But like college, you can have a first overall pick and Brock Purdy, who those stories are awesome. Like Richard Sherman, 5th, 6th round pick. That's what makes the draft exciting. There's just so much uncertainty, and for as many talented evaluators there are out there, we still miss. There's still those diamond moments.
Like you said, you never know.
Yeah. And
there's a certain element of you don't know.
That's why you do it. I think if it was, perfect marketplace, it wouldn't be as fun. I think that'd be boring.
Final one, and I promise this time it's actually the final one here, with Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook on the best podcast available, Baseball Idol. You were a baseball player in college.
Idol.
Is there a player that you idolized growing up?
I wouldn't say idolize. I
modeled your game after?
Emulated heavily Ken Griffey. I mean, lefty, top 3 sweetest swings ever.
I would agree with that.
Like him and Tony Gwynn. Like I'm biased, like they're left-handed. But I mean, Tony Gwynn is one of the greatest hitters of all time. But
was a great basketball player too.
Yes, very. People didn't appreciate it as that, because especially when I was like, I had to look back too. He was a little bit heavier when I saw him, but like his younger days, like he was pretty athletic. But I'd say those two.
Okay.
Like just I was all about trying to have a pure swing, and those guys, like especially Ken, because like Ken Griffey, like my swing was probably long like his. So I'd say for sure Griffey. If I could meet him, that's probably the one time I would fan.
Really?
Yeah, I'd probably trip out on that one.
All right.
Seriously.
I got to meet him at the old Municipal Stadium Indians game. I was a big Griffey fan.
Yeah.
My father took me in his company seats, and we were sitting down, and there was this family right next to us, and he comes over and starts talking to him, and I was like, what's going on here? It was Griffey's mom and his girlfriend at the time and other family members, and they were there for the game. So after the game, you're waiting outside. I was trying to get an autograph. You're waiting by the team bus. You could do that back in the day. You're waiting by the team bus, and Griffey comes out, and they'd lost, and he's in a bad mood, and he's not signing, and there's like 20 people around, and his mother pulls him aside and goes, "You're going to sign this boy's baseball. I don't care what kind of." She is scolding him in front of me and my father. He is giving me a death stare. I'm like 10 years old, maybe 11 years old. He wants to kill me. Give me your ball. Sign my baseball.
Nah, I've heard
he's a great guy.
He's a great guy, yeah.
Indeed. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. I hope I set a good standard for the first.
You did. You set the bar very, very high. I appreciate the time, and I wish you and everybody in the war room all the best here in the coming weeks.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah,
let's get it done.
It's nice. Like we filled a lot of needs, and let's go get some other guys, and
who knows? Like
let's see what shakes out.
They say constraints cause creativity, so we might get creative here at 74. You never know.
Little tease. Someone else in the organization likes to tweet out "still cooking," so we'll kind of see how that plays out as well. Gosh. All right, Glenn Cook, Assistant GM. Appreciate the time. All the best. Thanks to Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook. We wish him and Catherine Raish and Andrew Berry and company all the best here in the coming weeks as we count down to the 2023 NFL Draft. No first-round pick, no second-round pick. Doesn't mean it can't change, as Glenn Cook said. Plenty of time for things to happen here in Berea at the Cross Country Mortgage campus. Want to thank Connor. Want to thank Yellowstone on the other side of the glass. I'm Jason Gibbs. Make sure you like and subscribe today to the best podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Browns. Keep it locked to clevelandbrowns.com and the Browns mobile app for all the latest news and updates. Browns still not done in free agency, so be aware of that as we count down things to the NFL Draft as well. I'm Jason Gibbs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the best podcast available.